This video is the implications of the American Revolution. So what are the effects from the American Revolution? We know that Great Britain was a world power at this time. When America went to war and won, a lot of things changed. Politically, America had this idea that we are free people, now this is our country, we are no longer going to be oppressed, we are going to set up our own government, and this idea was a huge inspiration for a lot of events down the road. Shortly after, you have the French Revolution in 1789 and the Mexican War of Independence in 1810. Further down the timeline, this idea of revolution even inspires events of World War II and the outcome. The idea of revolution has spanned our entire history and is still inspiring events today. Economically, Great Britain had been getting fat and rich off of the 13 colonies and on the profit from trade, but once they lost their colonies, they took a big economic hit. During the Revolution, the French had been aiding the 13 colonies because it was in their best interest that we defeat Great Britain so the French can become a world power again. However, when we set up our national government after defeating the British, Alexander Hamilton had an idea that all the debt that was accrued by the 13 colonies be taken up by our national government. This leads to our national debt. Now, we didn't pay this back to the French right away, and they end up getting upset because they're poor, they didn't want to raise taxes, and we know what happens where the people revolt, the Third Estate revolts and storms the Bastille. In society, there's a big change. People now have this idea that they can stand up for their rights, they can stand up for their freedoms, and things can happen if they all band together. But this didn't happen right away. Over the span of 100 years, we see the abolishment of slavery, we see voter rights, and we see women's rights. These are three big changes that didn't happen right away, but over the span of history, we've seen this inspired by the American Revolution ideas. Now, our government has also inspired. We set up our democracy, and this has also been a model for other countries in the world today who are trying to set up a democracy. They look at us and say, this is how we should run it. So our government has actually been an inspiration, and it all stemmed from the American Revolution.